Hello! Welcome to DIY is my happy place. I'm Amy and today we're going to be making gnome shoes. Now I do have a tutorial of a bunch of different gnome shoes, but today I want to show how to make witch gnome shoes. And actually they could be, the same exact pattern could be used for elf shoes for Christmas, for St. Patrick's Day, leprechaun shoes, and certainly witch shoes. I absolutely love how it turned out. This is using my standing gnome technique that I have shown in previous videos, but I did this one a little bit different because I made the legs. I'm going to show you. Anyway, this is a little bit different, but I absolutely love it. So if you want to see how to make this gnome, stick with me. We're going to have some fun today. I can't even count how many gnome shoes I've made, but this time I'm going to try it a different way. I usually always put the little attachments in the bottom of the shoe and then I attach my gnome legs to it. This time I'm going to have the legs be the long part and attach it to a short body. The reason being that I can design the legs, or the socks so to speak, to match the shoes rather than, and then I don't have the ankle sock look. So we're going to start the gnome shoes somewhat similar to how I do my other gnome shoe tutorial, which is we're going to use these plastic cups that you get from Amazon, and I'll put a link down below to show you where you can get these cups. I buy them in bulk because I make so many gnomes, but I'm sure you can buy them in smaller amounts too. And then the soles are going to be made with cardboard, which you need 4 pieces of cardboard for every gnome pair of shoes, because you need a top and a bottom, and I'll show you that. So basically after we get those cut out, we're going to put those little plastic cups right on. They're like the ketchup cups. And we're going to give a generous amount of glue on the bottom of the sole, because that helps to reinforce and strengthen the shoe to keep it from tipping over. So we're going to put these little cups right down in there, and then we will take our other cups. I'm going to have the back part of it taller than the front, but we need to put holes in them so that we can fit our balloon yardsticks down in. Now, you can get balloon yardsticks from the Dollar Tree or from Amazon, and I will put the links below. But you definitely, if you get these from the Dollar Tree, you want to make sure you get the ones that have 4 in a package, not the little mini ones, because they don't have the attachment that you need in order to combine these. These little attachments are the key to making it so that you can attach one balloon straw to the other, and so you don't have to try to combine everything all at once. And it makes it so much easier if you do your shoes separately from your gnome and then attach them after they're put together. So we're going to make our shoes and our legs today, and this time we'll have the gnome body. Instead of it being long like that, we're going to have the gnome body have the short legs and the long legs will be with the shoe. I hope I'm making sense. Okay, now when we're making these gnome shoes, we want to be able to have a bit of a split down the side so that it looks like an elf shoe or a witch shoe. So that's why I'm cutting this. Now you don't have to worry about it being strong because we're going to reinforce it with tape. And the type of tape that I would recommend is package wrapping tape, the really thin kind. Okay, so after we get these together, we need some felt, whichever color you want your gnome shoes to be. And because these are witch gnomes, I'm going to just be using black felt only. We're going to cut it into a square and then cut the very center out so that we have a place for the balloon straw to fit down through. And then just glue the felt all the way around. I have found that you want felt to be going inside the shoe too, because you can see, especially if you're doing a girl gnome, which I mostly do with skirts, you can see down into the shoe. So you want it to be the same color as the outside. So basically you're just putting a little square down in and then glue around all the different edges of the top of our shoe, just like that. Okay, now that we've got felt lined on around the inside and the outside of this, we will go ahead and glue the top part of the shoe to the bottom of the shoe. And then we're going to reinforce the whole thing with the postal tape that I was talking about. Now, definitely you want to get the kind that's the really flimsy kind, because otherwise you can see lines. If you get the clear white or any other kind of tape, even Scotch tape, it'll show the lines. And we really want them to just hide away, because once we put the felt on the outside, we don't want to see creases. Okay, now we're going to take the bottom of our soles and just wrap it with duct tape on the top and the bottom. As you can see, I ran out of duct tape on this, but that's okay. I'll just put that up underneath. The reason why I do duct tape both on the top and the bottom is, once again, to just help give it a little bit more of a sturdy foundation so that it won't tip over. And then just trim around. Now we're going to get our straws. We're going to cut them in half. Now they don't have to be exactly perfect, because we're going to trim them up once we get our gnome done. And then we're just going to push those through. And this could be when you glue them in, but I'm going to go ahead and build the body of the gnome and make sure that it stands, it's going the right direction before I glue those straws in. Now I'm going to get some scratch paper, cut it into 4s, and actually I'm doing 6 pieces of paper at a time, or you could use cardstock, but I just like to use what I have. And then I'm going to fold this around kind of like a party hat, dome pointed hat kind of a thing. And this is what we're going to use to make our curlicue on the front of our shoe, so that it really becomes a witch's shoe, curly witch shoe. Okay, so it doesn't matter what kind of tape you use here. You can use Scotch tape, masking tape, whatever. We just want to get that into a cone shape, and I'm going to go ahead and reinforce it with my packing tape and make sure that it is not going to pop anywhere. And now it looks like a sugar cone. We're going to trim it off, and depending on how big around your shoe is or how tall you want it, is how big you can make that cone. Look, oh, boom, 2. Isn't the magic of YouTube awesome? Now we're going to cut these, and we're going to wrap it around and put some glue on this as well. Now we're going to attach our party hat to the shoe. And again, we're going to use this fancy tape to just wrap it all the way around and then pinch it into the formation of the shoe. I know it still looks crazy. We're not there yet. This is just the next step, but we're getting closer. Okay, so we're just going to glue both of these down, and it's starting to come together. I know it looks sloppy right now, but once we get felt all the way around and we give it its little curl, Woohoo! We're going to be so happy with our fun, fantastic shoes. Then, once again, we're going to cover every square inch of it with felt. Once you get it completely covered in felt, it's okay to add some embellishments. I have some different types of ribbon that I'm going to put around the top of the shoe. You can also use some of the sticker, bedazzly jewel things that you get from the Dollar Tree, or really just about anything here just to add a little pizzazz to the gnome shoe. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and decorate the legs, and I want them to be black with some ribbon around. So I actually just took a black marker and colored the straw black, and then I'll add some ribbon to make it look like a twirly stocking is on our witch legs. And I just absolutely love this. Now, I'm not exactly sure how long the straw is going to need to be, so I'm just going ahead and putting ribbon all the way up and down the straw, and then I can trim it off once I decide the exact size. This is the part where you really can design the legs to look like any color that you're using. And actually, it wouldn't have to be ribbon. You could use that tape that you get, or pieces of fabric, anything could work here. Now I'm going to go ahead and black all the outer edges of my sole, and I'm going to glue that onto my gnome shoe to help reinforce it, as I said, and to cover up any kind of flaws where the felt came together on the bottom. And you want to use a generous amount of hot glue to hold this in place. We're getting almost ready to curl our little shoe. This next part is my favorite part, and it took me a while to figure out how I could make it curl, what I could use inside. And then I finally realized 6 pieces of paper seemed to do the trick with some felt. And then you just roll, and you just kind of push the paper where you want it. And then on the very tip of our pointed straw, or pointed hat, which is now our shoe, we're going to put a little dab of hot glue, hold it in place, and then there you go. Voila! A curly Q gnome shoe. Isn't it fantastic? I love it so much. Now you can put a bedazzle on the top or a buckle, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. But this is how these will attach. Now, the top of the gnome will have short little straws, and of course it's going to have the skirt and the arms and everything else that I've shown in many tutorials. I have links down below if you want to see any style of bendable arms or whatever kind of style you think you might be interested in for a gnome. I have done now 25 tutorials, maybe more than that, of different types of gnomes for every holiday, every season, every type, every style. So you just see what kind of gnome you're interested in, and I'll show you. So this particular tutorial is about the shoes, not about the gnome itself, the gnome body. But that is what it's going to look like when they're put together. Now I've made a bunch more pairs of shoes in the meantime, and now I want to show you how I created a heel. That was one thing that I was actually looking at which shoe decoration that I have, and I was thinking, you know, these things need heels. So I came up with a way to create a heel on the back of the gnome shoe, and that is just folding over some cardboard into a little mini square, and then you tape it off and make sure you do 2, put it on a piece of paper, and then hot glue. What this is doing is it's going to form a square for us, and you want these little heels to be pretty short. I started off too tall, and it's actually a lot smaller than you would think of what you need for a heel. So generously put some glue in there and then just set it aside and let it cool. It doesn't have to be all the way full either. Even half full will be fine, because we're going to line it with felt. And then for the buckle, I just do little squares with some fancy Dollar Tree silver duct tape. Fold that over and create a buckle. Now, a lot of the pictures of buckles that I've found, they have a hole in the middle, but that was really a pain to do. And I figured out that a lot of them have jewels on them. So I just decided, rather than trying to create a hole in the middle of the buckle, the shoe buckle, I'm just going to put a gem on the top of the buckle. And that looks really cute, and it's very easy to do. So I always have gems. So you can pick whatever color you might be using to go with your gnome and just glue on a little gem. And that is how you create a very cute buckle for an embellishment on the gnome shoe. All right, now I've got all these different gnome shoes. I'm going to show you the technique that we use. I'm not going to actually show you the entire gnome, but I'm just going to show you the technique that I used to create the body of this type of gnome, which is a little different than the other ones that I've made. So I get a black ankle athletic sock from the Dollar Tree in the men's socks area, and I used some filling from a pillow. So this part is similar if you've watched my videos before, but the difference is I'm going to have the straw part be shorter since the legs are in the shoe. But you still use the same straws, and you have to get them all the way up to the top of the sock, both of them, to hold it into place. Now, when you are creating these standable gnomes, it is smart to try to make them as light as possible so they don't tip over. They're not top heavy. And because I'm doing a witch's hat on this one, I know it's going to have a little bit more weight on top, so I'm keeping the body of it quite thin. So that's the idea here. Okay, and then just like my other ones, I go ahead and give a generous amount of glue in there and set it aside so that that can dry and it'll hold its place. Okay, now for our heel, once that glue has set up, you can just cut the paper off of it and then line the entire thing with felt. It's amazing how different the shoes look when they have heels on them. So that just makes all the difference. Now I have my little attachment that will attach the body of my gnome to the legs. Now these are looking a little bit too long possibly, but I'll decide. But the whole idea is I just needed to make sure that everything was lining up with the body that I glued. Now that I've got them figured out, I did decide to go ahead and trim it down just a little bit, and I had to glue the ribbon on the top. I wasn't putting glue into the straw, just gluing that ribbon because I cut it off. Now it's looking more proportioned, and I love it. Now I'll take a set of the buckles that I made and glue those right onto the front of the shoe. And it's really starting to look like a witch's shoe, just like I wanted. And just a reminder, you can use the same technique for elves. Just use the color that would be for the elf. Oh, look at this. The gnome got put together with the magic of videos. Now, remember how I have just the little stub legs up there? We can attach those little pieces together, make sure it is completely steady, and then our gnome is done. Once again, I became a little obsessed with making these gnomes once I figured all this out. So I've made half a dozen. I'll probably have 12 of them before all is said and done. Okay, now that I know everything lines up and it fits in nicely, I'm going to go ahead and put glue down in the bottom of the shoe to reinforce it so that these legs will not move around. I want them to be very steady, and that is going to be the key to it not tipping over. So just push those straws down in, twist them around, and let it dry and really set up. Once it's completely set up, then you can attach the gnome back to it. I always like to add a gnome sign of some sort. It's kind of just something that I love to do. The gnome signs just give it that final touch, and it can be customized to whoever you might be giving the gnome to, or if you're keeping it for yourself. And that is how you make curly Q gnome shoes. What do you think? Are you all ready to make gnome shoes now? I'm telling you, witch gnomes are the best gift you could ever give to somebody in October. I love it. See ya. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.